When my son told me that I might not be welcome at his residence for Christmas, I smiled, got in my automobile, and made one call. By the brand new year, I had their mortgage payments canceled, and that becomes simply the start of my plan. Justice ought to be restored and conceitedness punished. You might not agree with what I did subsequent. Before we preserve, please enroll in the channel and let us know where you are listening inside the comments. I should make my famous turkey this war, I stated, settling deeper into Michael's leather sofa, the one with the sage stuffing your mom used to love. Remember how she'd constantly say it turned into better than her grandmother's? The words hung in the heat air between us, blending with the fragrance of Isabella's expensive vanilla candles. Michael shifted beside me, his wedding ceremony ring catching the light from their 12-oot Christmas tree. Something in his posture, modified, shoulders pulling inward like he became bracing for effect. Dad, regrettably, you might not be welcome right here for Christmas. The words hit me like a bodily blow. I blinked, positive I'd misheard. What do you imply? Why wouldn't I be welcome? Michael could not meet my eyes, his gaze constant on the marble coffee desk. The only I'd helped him choose out remaining spring, while Isabella decided their antique furnishings wasn't sophisticated sufficient. Isabella's parents are coming, and they had opted for, if you were not right here, my hands went cold, they'd select. It's just easier this manner, Dad. You realize how her circle of relatives is set traditions? They have their personal way of doing matters. His voice were given smaller with every word, like he becomes shrinking interior himself. I regarded around the residing room on the silk curtains I'd paid for, whilst Isabella complained approximately, privacy. At the hardwood floors that had come from my second loan, at the crown molding that had maxed out my credit scorecard. Every inch of this house bore my fingerprints, my sacrifice, my love for my son. Their personal way, I repeated slowly. And what manner is that, Michael? He flinched. Dad, please do not make this harder than it must be. Through the kitchen archway, I ought to see Isabella's new KitchenAid mixer, the professional grade one she'd insisted she needed for her holiday baking segment that lasted precisely 3 weeks. $2,000 of my cash sitting there, probably used 2 times due to the fact that October. Where will I spend Christmas then? The query came out quieter than I intended. Michael's face crumbled. Maybe you could, I don't know, perhaps visit Aunt Rosa, or we may want to do something the weekend after. The weekend after. Like Christmas was simply every other appointment that could be rescheduled for comfort. I stood up, my knees protesting. After 8 years of carrying this burden by myself. I see, Dad. Wait. But I was already transferring toward the door, past the circle of relatives' pics, in which my face grew smaller and extra remote in each frame, past the coat closet that held Isabella's 1,000 jackets. My hand discovered the doorknob stable and bloodless below my palm. Son, I said, without turning round. Tell Isabella's parents, I stated. Feliz Navidad. The December air hit my face like a slap as I walked towards my truck. Behind me, I heard, Michael, name my name as soon as... Then the smooth click of the door final absolute. I sat within the motive force's seat for a moment, engine off, looking the Christmas lighting fixtures twinkle in the home windows of houses I'd never be. Welcome in. My phone buzzed, in all likelihood Michael trying to easy matters over with empty guarantees and guilt. I did not answer. Instead, I became the important thing, and drove into the darkness, leaving behind the warm glow of the house I'd bought, but might in no way belong in. The heater hummed towards the December bloodless, as I navigated the acquainted streets towards domestic. South Hills sprawled around me, each community corner protecting recollections of the person I used to be, the one who believed own family intended the whole thing, who'd supply his final greenback to peer his son's smile. That guy changed into a fool. I stopped on the pink light on 29th and Grand, watching a younger father load Christmas presents into his SUV. His kids pressed their faces in opposition to the window, breath fogging the glass with pleasure. Once, upon a time, that had been Michael and me. Before Isabella, before I have become nothing more than an on-foot ATM with inconvenient feelings, the numbers commenced rolling through my head like a damaged slot device. $2,800 each month for 5 years. My calculator had given up trying to make experience of it closing spring after I'd eventually brought up the total. $140,000. More money than Maria and I had stored for our whole retirement. Gone. Just gone. I pressed the accelerator more difficult than necessary as the light grew to become green. The truck spoke back with a growl that matched my mood. 5th Street. That was in which I'd refinanced my residence. Our residence, Maria's and mine, to cowl their down fee. The mortgage officer had looked at me with pity I hadn't recognized at the time. "Mr. Flores, are you positive approximately this? You're putting a lot at hazard for a person else's funding." "Someone else's funding? Not my son's future, now not my family's security. Someone else's funding. Lincoln Street, the financial institution where I had taken out a second mortgage while Michael lost his process years in the past. Just transient, Dad. Just till I get back on my toes." Isabella had stood at the back of him, 700 handbag, slung over her shoulder, nodding sympathetically whilst mentally calculating how tons my desperation become really worth. Nothing. As it grew to become out, my desperation was really worth nothing to them. I pulled into my driveway, the one with the cracked concrete I could not come up with the money for to fix due to the fact every spare dollar disappeared into their best suburban fable. The porch light flickered. Every other restore I'd been eliminating. Inside, the residence felt hollow without Maria's laughter, without the warm temperature of circle of relatives gatherings that could in no way manifest once more. My telephone rang as I fumbled with my keys, the shrill tone echoing off the empty partitions. Isabella's name flashed on the screen, probable looking to provide an explanation for why I wasn't accurate enough for her mother and father delicate sensibilities. Perfect timing. I'd been waiting 5 years to have this verbal exchange. I spoke back on the 4th ring, letting her wait simply long sufficient to surprise if I'd pick up at all. "Dennis." Isabella's voice dripped with fake sweetness, the identical tone she used whilst asking me to cowl their water bill or property taxes. I heard about the little false impression with Michael. Misunderstanding? I leaned in opposition to my kitchen counter, nonetheless carrying my coat. "I don't think there's any misunderstanding, Isabella. You made your function pretty clean. Look, I recognize this seems harsh. However, you have to recognize my parents' angle. They're very traditional people. They expect a certain environment at some stage in the vacations." "A sure ecosystem," I repeated. "And what atmosphere is that?" A pause. I ought to hear shopping bags rustling in the Heritage. Probably spending cash that have to have long passed to their loan price. Money that changed into my responsibility. Reputedly. "Well, they may be now not used on your form of cooking. All that highly spiced Mexican food and loud track. And frankly, Dennis, they are educated humans. They count on conversations about contemporary occasions, literature, artwork, you understand." The words hit more difficult than a bodily blow. 8 years of biting my tongue, of swallowing insults for Michael's sake, of pretending now not to word the way she looked at me like I changed into some type of hired help. My kind of cooking. My voice stayed degree. Controlled. "You mean the meals you ate each Sunday for 3 years when cash became tight? The tamales you said reminded you of your grandmother? That turned into specific. We were appreciative then, but now with my mother and father. Now together with your dad and mom, you cannot have the Mexican peasant embarrassing you at your fancy dinner desk." The false sweetness evaporated. "Don't be dramatic, Dennis. This isn't approximately race. It's about magnificence. My father graduated summa cum laude from Washington State. My mother speaks 4 languages. They summer inside the Hamptons. What precisely might you contribute to dinner conversation? Stories about laying tile?" Heat flooded my chest. However, I stored my voice steady. "I constructed a commercial enterprise from nothing after your husband's grandfather died. I've employed over 50 human beings. I've paid extra in taxes than your father made in his first-rate year. Money isn't always the entirety, Dennis. Breeding matters, education topics, and frankly, Maria understood her area better than you apprehend yours." The line went dead silent. She'd crossed it. The line I did not even recognize existed until she'd stomped throughout it in her dressmaker heels. "What did you say approximately? My spouse?" "I'm simply announcing she knew how to combo and hire. She did not make waves. She understood that a few areas were not supposed for her." My hand tightened across the phone until my knuckles went white. "Maria had greater class in her little finger than your whole bloodline will ever own. Oh, please. She become a house cleaner who got fortunate. At least she had the coolest feel. To stay quiet, approximately it. Isabella." My voice dropped to something I didn't apprehend. "I want you to listen very carefully. This conversation is over. We're executed pretending to be own family. You can't simply, we're carried out," I repeated and ended the call. I set the phone down carefully at the counter, my hands rather steady. Around me, the kitchen felt distinct, smaller, but by some means cleaner, like a weight were lifted from the air itself. I walked to my table in the corner, pulled out the manila folder I'd been fending off for months. Financial institution statements, mortgage papers, 5 years of automatic transfers that had bled me dry while they lived like royalty. Time to prevent the bleeding. Part 4. The first choice, canceling the mortgage. The files unfold across my kitchen table like evidence at against the law scene. 5 years of financial institution statements, everyone showing the equal automatic transfer. $2,800 on the 15th of each month, vanishing from my account into theirs, a paper path of my own stupidity. I pulled out my calculator and started, out-adding. The first 12 months, $33,600. The second 12 months, every other $33,600. By the third year, I'd stopped shopping for myself new garments. The fourth 12 months, I'd commenced purchasing at cut-price grocery shops. This YR, the fifth 12 months, I'd been ingesting peanut butter sandwiches for lunch to make ends meet. $143,400. Not counting the down price. Not counting the times I'd protected their utilities while Isabella's buying dependency were given out of hand. Not counting the brand new roof, the landscaping, the fixtures that become crucial for his or her lifestyle. I sat lower back in my chair, looking on the numbers until they blurred. Maria's lifestyle's coverage cash, my retirement financial savings, the college fund we'd began for grandchildren I'd seemingly in no way be allowed to look. All of it gone. Poured into a residence in which I wasn't welcome for Christmas dinner. I reached for my smartphone, scrolled via my contacts until I discovered the range for my financial institution. The automatic device supplied me options, in English and Spanish. How thoughtful, how accommodating to people like me. Customer provider. This is Jennifer. How can I assist you today? I want to cancel an automated switch, I stated, my voice steadier than it had been in years. Certainly, sir. I'll need your account variety and a few verification information. I rattled off the numbers, watched her type in the history. Professional, green, no judgment approximately why a 62-year-old man changed into canceling bills, to what become in all likelihood his son's loan. I see the transfer you're relating to, Mr. Flores. $2,800 monthly to Wells Fargo. Account finishing in 7423. How long have you been making this transfer? 5 years. The words tasted bitter. And you want to cancel it powerful without delay? I looked around my kitchen on the previous appliances I could not have enough money to replace, on the partitions that wished painting, on the windows that leaked bloodless air due to the fact I'd spent my home development cash on someone else's fortress. Effective right now, I confirmed. Done. The transfer has been canceled. Is there something else I will let you with today? No, I stated, sudden myself with how suitable the word felt. No, that's the whole lot. I hung up and sat inside the surprising quiet of my residence. Outside, December darkness becomes settling over Spokane. Christmas lights twinkling in home windows, in which households accumulated without situations, without judgment, without the need to cover who they have been. For the first time in 5 years, subsequent months' price range with stability. For the first time, for the reason that Maria died, I could have enough money to restoration my porch light, buy respectable groceries, perhaps even take a vacation. I collected up the financial institution statements, the loan papers, all of the proof of my generosity. Then I walked to my hearth, struck a suit, and watched 5 years of martyrdom turn to ash. The hearth felt heat on my face, hotter than I'd felt in years. My cell phone buzzed with a text message, likely Michael wanting to apologize, or Isabella wanting money for something essential, like new throw pillows. I did not test it. Instead, I poured myself a pitcher of the best whiskey, the bottle I'd been saving for a unique event that never regarded to come back. Tonight felt special enough. I raised my glass to the empty room, to Maria's photograph on the mantel, to the person I was and the man I changed into becoming. Merry Christmas to me, I said, and intended it. Part 5. Isabella's provocation. The subsequent morning arrived crisp and clear, December sunlight streaming through my kitchen home windows as I nursed my 2 cup of coffee. For the first time in years, I wasn't calculating how a whole lot money would disappear from my account in 3 days. The freedom tasted higher than the Colombian combination I'd finally allowed myself to shop for. My telephone rang at exactly 10:47 a.m. Isabella's call flashed at the display screen like a caution label. Dennis. Her voice carried that familiar tone of barely concealed impatience. I want you to pick up my parents from Spokane, airport. Their flight from Portland arrives at 2. I set down my mug cautiously, looking the steam curl closer to the ceiling. Isabella, did you forget about our conversation the day gone by? Look, something that was about We need to focus on sensible topics now. My parents need transportation, and you are the most effective one with time all through the day. The audacity became breathtaking. Less than 24 hours after telling me I wasn't worthy of sharing Christmas dinner together with her circle of relatives, she expected me to function their private chauffeur. And you're asking me because due to the fact that is what family does. Dennis, they assist every other. Her voice sharpened with infection. Besides, let's be honest right here. You're no longer my rival. You're too vulnerable to be my rival. So just get in your truck and select them up. There it became, the very last insult wrapped in a command. What airline? I requested quietly. Alaska Air Flight 447. They'll be at bags, claim Carousel 3. And Dennis, they are anticipating someone who can handle their bags properly. Don't embarrass us. I ought to listen her nails tapping against something difficult, probably her granite countertop, the one I'd paid for while she decided laminate wasn't appropriate for her dinner parties. Of root, I stated. I'll deal with everything. Good. And wear something respectable. Maybe that blue blouse you wore to Michael's graduation. They noticed things like that. The line went lifeless. She hadn't even said thanks. I sat returned in my chair, searching at my phone's clean display. 2 Henry Swan, Flight 447, baggage claim, Carousel 3. I glanced at the wall clock above my sink. 10:52 a.m. Plenty of time. I poured myself another cup of espresso, brought an extra spoonful of sugar, and opened the previous day's newspaper to the crossword puzzle I hadn't completed. 7 across. Delayed gratification. 12 letters. The answer might come to me in the end. Part 6. The airport lure. At 2:15 p.m., I changed into settling into my preferred armchair, with a fresh cup of Earl Grey and the Spokane Review Sunday edition. The crossword from the day prior to this lay completed on my espresso table. Delayed gratification have been postponement. My cell phone buzzed towards the timber floor. Isabella's name again. I allow it ring. The December solar slanted via my dwelling room windows, warming the gap in which I'd spent such a lot of lonely evenings counting the price of my generosity. Today, the silence felt distinctive. Earned. Intentional. 2:47 p.m. The telephone buzzed again. This time I could see the preview of her text. Dad, wherein are you? My parents are. I turned the phone face down and again to the sports segment. The Seahawks had misplaced again. Some matters in no way changed. By 3:30, my cell phone had buzzed 6 instances. I'd completed the newspaper, brewed a 2D pot of tea, and started out organizing the junk drawer in my kitchen desk. Amazing what you may accomplish while you weren't speeding around serving folks that taken into consideration you their private bellhop. The 7th name came at 3:45. Instead of Isabella's name, I saw a regarded number. Probably her dad and mom borrowed someone's smartphone at the airport. I permit that one ring, too. Outside, a neighbor turned into placing Christmas lighting on his porch. His youngsters running around the backyard with the manic electricity that simplest December afternoons should carry. Normal households doing regular things. No one was stranded anywhere, watching for a person who would in no way come. 4:15 p.m. My smartphone started ringing and failed to stop. Isabella, then the unknown range, then Isabella once more. The humming have become steady, like an angry wasp trapped in opposition to glass. I walked to my kitchen and unplugged my landline from the wall. Then I became my cellular smartphone completely off. Perfect silence. I made myself a grilled cheese sandwich and heated up a can of tomato soup, consolation food I hadn't allowed myself in months, because each grocery dollar had gone toward me. Somewhere throughout town, 3 human beings had been in all likelihood standing in an airport parking storage, arguing approximately taxi fare, and questioning how their personal servant had the audacity to strand them. The notion made my soup flavor even better. By 5:00 p.m., I'd eaten dinner, loaded my dishwasher, and become thinking about what movie to observe. It had been years seeing that I'd had an entire nighttime to myself, without worrying approximately emergency requires money or remaining minute favors. I changed into attaining for the far-flung when someone started out pounding on my front door, no longer knocking, pounding, the sort of aggressive hammering that rattled the body and announced natural fury. I set down my tea and walked slowly closer to the sound, already knowing precisely who I'd locate on the other side. The pounding intensified as I approached the door, each blow greater violent than the closing. Through the peephole, I could see 3 figures crowded on my small porch like wolves circling prey. I opened the door to locate Cody Jenkins's pink face inches from mine. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he shouted, pushing past me into my residing room without invitation. We waited at that goddamn airport for over 3 hours. Catherine accompanied him, her commonly ideal hair matted, her lips pressed into a thin line of pure hatred. "This is completely unacceptable conduct from a person your age, Dennis. Absolutely barbaric." Isabella brought up the rear, her fashion, designer coat wrinkled, her makeup smeared. "You humiliated us. Do you have any idea what you've got carried out? My mother and father needed to take a 40 taxi because you made a decision to get out of my house." My voice reduced through their chorus of rage like a blade through silk. They stopped mid-rant, greatly surprised through the metal in my tone. "Excuse me." Cody's face went from pink to pink. "You don't get to make needs here, buddy. Not after what you pulled today." "This is my residence," I stated quietly, no longer moving from my roll through the door. "And I need you out now." Catherine advanced, her voice dripping with the sort of condescension she'd perfected over many years of looking down on people like me. "Dennis, you without a doubt don't understand the importance of your mistake. My husband has connections in the course of this town. Business connections, social connections. You cannot deal with human beings like us this manner and assume this became a lesson for you," I interrupted, assembling her gaze regularly. "A lesson about your immoderate arrogance and your terrible remedy of humans you remember beneath you." Isabella's mouth fell open. "A lesson? Who do you observe you're to educate every person whatever? You're no person. I'm a person who subsequently stopped being your personal bank account and taxi service." I stepped apart and held the door open wider. "The lesson is over. You can go away." Cody jabbed a finger closer to my chest, but did not pretty dare touch me. "You don't have any concept who you are messing with, old man. I've been on this town longer than you've got been respiration its air. I recognize human beings, vital humans, those who can make your life very, very difficult." "Is that a threat, Mr. Jenkins?" "It's a promise." His voice dropped to a menacing whisper. "You think forsaking aged people at an airport is just something you can do without results? You're about to analyze precisely how incorrect you're?" Catherine nodded, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. "Indeed, moves have outcomes, Dennis, and yours may be pretty public." Isabella grabbed her father's arm. "Daddy, allows just cross. This pathetic vintage man isn't always well worth our time." They filed out of my residence like a defeated army. However, Cody grew to become lower back at the edge. "You'll remorse this," he stated. "I assure it." I closed the door in the back of them and grew to become the deadbolt with a fulfilling click. Through the window, I watched them pile into their condo car, still arguing among themselves as they drove away into the December darkness. The residents felt purifier with them gone, as if their presence had left a stain that became simplest now lifting, but their parting phrases echoed within the surprising quiet. Public results, critical people, connections. I walked again to my dwelling room and picked up my tea, nonetheless heat in its mug. For the first time on this complete mess, I felt something that would have been subject. But it changed into overwhelmed with the aid of something a great deal more potent. Anticipation. 3 days later, I changed into playing my morning coffee, and scanning the Spokane Evaluate once I noticed my personal face staring returned at me from page 3. The headline examined, "Spokane businessman abandons aged couple at airport throughout holiday typhoon." My fingers went nevertheless around the espresso mug. There I turned into in black and white, and vintage image from my business enterprise's website, possibly 5 years obsolete. Below it, a tale that made my blood run cold, and my temper flare in equal measure. Cody and Catherine Jenkins traveling. Their daughter for Christmas had been left stranded at Spokane International Airport for over 4 hours Sunday when member of the family Dennis Flores failed to appear for a pre-arranged pickup. The couple, each of their overdue 50s, waited in frigid temperatures as a winter storm caution became issued for the area. Winter storm warning. It have been 52 degrees and sunny. "We couldn't consider a person could simply abandon us like that," said Cody Jenkins, a retired banking government. "We called time and again, but Mr. Flores by no means responded his cell phone. We were forced to take an high-priced taxi in risky climate situations. At our age, this form of remedy isn't always just thoughtless, it's dangerous." The article endured, with rates approximately my pattern of erratic conduct and issues about my intellectual nation. Cody had painted himself and Catherine as helpless victims of a merciless vintage guy who'd snapped without provocation. No mention of the Christmas dinner rejection, no context approximately Isabella's demands, or their years of economic exploitation. Just me, the villain who deserted poor elderly tourists for the duration of a snowstorm that existed only in Cody's creativeness. I sat down my coffee and studied the thing again, slowly, then a third time. The by way of line belonged to Patricia Morrison, lifestyle editor. I did not apprehend the name, but I identified the method. Cody had referred to as in favors, used his banking connections to get this story positioned precisely in which it would do most harm to my reputation. Smart. Very clever. For the first time considering this entire mess started out, I felt at the grudging appreciate for my fighters. They were not simply entitled to agree with fund infants throwing tantrums. They have been strategic, calculating. They understood that in a small metropolis like Spokane, reputation turned into the whole thing. One properly located newspaper article could spoil a long time of hard work. They declared general war. I folded the newspaper carefully and set it aside, my mind already shifting into the methodical making plans mode that had constructed my enterprise from nothing. This wasn't approximately airport pickups anymore. This wasn't approximately Christmas dinner or loan bills. This became about triumphing. I pulled out my laptop and commenced typing names into search engines like Google and Yahoo. Cody Jenkins, Catherine Jenkins, Isabella Flores, their social media profiles, their connections, their habits, their weaknesses, everything that they had foolishly made public over time. If they wanted to play chess, I'd display them what a real strategist looked like. I glanced at my wall calendar. December 18th, 7 days till Christmas. 7 days to plot something they had in no way forget. I spent the subsequent 3 days dwelling in an exceptional global, not the sector where I became Dennis Flores, the broken-down antique man who allowed his family walk throughout him. This was the arena wherein I become Dennis Flores, businessman, strategic philosopher, someone who'd built something from not anything, and wasn't about to permit a gaggle of entitled parasites break what I'd worked 40 years to construct. My computer have become command significant. Social media profiles filled my browser tabs like playing cards in a high-stakes recreation. Cody Jenkins, retired First National Bank manager, member of the Spokane Country Club, treasurer of the Inland Northwest Business Leaders Association, a person who'd spent his career in positions of consider and have an effect on, a person with lots to lose. Catherine's Instagram painted an ideal photo of subtle dwelling, charity luncheons, wine tastings, holiday photographs from Coeur d'Alene tagged with trash-blessed lifestyles. Every put-up carefully curated to project fulfillment and sophistication. Comments from pals praising her elegant taste and galvanizing way of life, all constructed on other people's cash, together with mine. Isabella's Facebook timeline instructed, the actual tale. Posts approximately our beautiful domestic with photos of the kitchen I'd paid for. Check-ins at expensive eating places in the course of the months after I'd blanketed their utility payments. A fame update from Ultimate Week. So excited for Christmas dinner with own family, can't wait to expose off our web hosting abilities, our hosting abilities, our domestic, our fulfillment. The narcissism was breathtaking. But it became Michael's LinkedIn profile that gave me the very last piece I wished. His recent pastime showed a brand new connection. Patricia Morrison, Way of Life editor on the Spokane Review, the equal Patricia Morrison who'd written The Hatchet Job about me. I leaned lower back in my table chair, looking on the evidence spread across my display. These people had made 3 important errors. First, they'd underestimated me absolutely. Second, that they had long gone public with their attack, which meant I ought to go public with my response. Third, that they had documented their complete privileged way of life online, developing a really perfect catalog of hypocrisy. I clicked via to Patricia Morrison's profile, 43 years old, journalism degree from WSU, 15 years at Neighborhood Papers, no preceding connection to banking or finance, which meant Cody had reached out bloodless, probably via someone he knew from his enterprise network. A 5-minute seek through neighborhood business directories showed my suspicion. 3 mutual connections among Cody and Patricia's editor. The story hadn't just seemed. It had been planted cautiously and intentionally. Amateur hour. I opened a new record and started typing. Not a response to their media attack. Something a great deal higher. A timeline. 5 years of monetary aid documented with bank statements, receipts, and canceled tests. The down price for their residence, $47,000 from my home equity, mortgage. The kitchen upkeep while Isabella determined granite countertops were vital, $18,000 from my credit scorecard. 60 month-to-month mortgage bills of $2,800 each, $168,000 in counting, 1/4 of a million greenbacks, greater than I'd spent on myself within the last decade. My smartphone buzzed with a text from a number I failed to apprehend, probable Isabella. Attempting a new perspective, I neglected it and stored operating. By nighttime, I had everything organized in a manila folder thick enough to choke a horse. Bank statements, receipts, pics downloaded from their social media displaying off purchases. I'd funded a broadcast copy of the newspaper article with my handwritten notes within the margins, documenting every lie and distortion. I checked out my wall calendar. December 24th became circled in crimson, not as it became Christmas, however, because it became the appropriate day for justice. According to Isabella's Facebook events, they have been website hosting Christmas dinner for 12 humans, family, pals, associates, individuals in their social circle, the sort of people who read the Spokane Review and shaped critiques based totally on what they notice there, the type of folks who need to recognize the truth. I closed my laptop and walked to my kitchen, in which I'd left my desirable digital camera, the one I'd offered years in the past to file job websites for my commercial enterprise. Time to place it to paintings documenting something else entirely. Tomorrow changed into Christmas Eve. Tomorrow, Cody Jenkins and his own family have been going to analyze what passed off while you declared war on someone who in reality knew a way to fight. Christmas Eve morning dawned gray and bloodless, the form of Spokane wintry weather day that made you grateful for warm houses and family gatherings. Too terrible I would not be welcome at either. But I had other plans. I laid out my evidence like a lawyer preparing for trial. Bank statements organized by way of YR. Each monthly price highlighted in yellow. Receipts arranged chronologically displaying the sample of my help for their way of life. Photos printed from their social media. Isabella's new jewelry. Their holiday photographs. The high-priced Christmas decorations currently decorating the house. I'd helped them keep all of it copied 12 times. One for every dinner visitor. The newspaper article went on pinnacle of each stack. My purple pen notes seen in the margins. Lie written next to Cody's charges about risky weather. False. Beside the claim about my erratic behavior. Missing context. Highlighted in which that they had failed to say 5 years of monetary aid. I dressed cautiously in my fine fit. The military blue one I'd worn to Maria's funeral. Pressed and prepared for every other kind of farewell. Today I was announcing goodbye to the person who'd been a doormat for his own family. Tonight, I'd be someone who commanded respect. At 6:30 p.m., I loaded my briefcase with the evidence packets and drove to Kendall Yards. Their residence glowed with warm light, automobiles filling the driveway and lining the road. Through the front windows, I should see figures shifting around the eating room, Isabella playing hostess inside the domestic my money had helped them buy. I parked throughout the street and checked my watch. 6:45. Perfect timing. Late sufficient that everyone would be seated for dinner. Early sufficient that they'd nevertheless be on the main course. No smooth getaway for everybody. The front door changed into unlocked. Of route it changed into. Isabella loved to expose off how secure their community changed into, how they did not need to worry about protection, like humans in rougher regions. I permit myself in quietly, the nice and cozy air hitting my face together with the sounds of laughter and conversation from the eating room. And then Catherine said, "But darling, that is not how we do things in our own family." Someone turned into saying, followed by way of more laughter. Our family after the entirety they had performed to exclude me from it. I walked into the dining room sporting my briefcase, 12 faces turning toward me with expressions ranging from marvel to horror. Isabella iced up together with her wine glass midway to her lips. Michael's face went pale. Cody and Catherine seemed like that they had seen a ghost. "Good evening, every person," I said lightly, placing my briefcase on their marble sideboard. "I hope you do not mind me joining your Christmas birthday celebration." Isabella determined her voice first. "Dennis, this is completely irrelevant. You need to depart right away." "Actually," I said, starting my briefcase and pulling out the first stack of papers, "I suppose your guests need to recognize who absolutely paid for this dinner, this residence, and this lifestyle you've been displaying off." A female I didn't understand, probably certainly one of Catherine's charity friends, leaned forward with interest. "What is he talking approximately?" "Isabella, he's having a few form of episode," Isabella stated fast. "Michael, call a person." But I changed into already moving around the table, placing a packet of documents in front of every visitor. "Here are the financial institution records," I said conversationally. 5 years of economic assist, $168,000 in mortgage bills alone, plus the down payment, renovations, furnishings, home equipment, the whole thing you notice around you. The room went silent besides for the rustling of papers, as 12 human beings began examining the proof. I watched their faces trade as they absorbed the numbers, the dates, the undeniable proof of my generosity and their deception. "This is," one man started out, then stopped, observing a bank announcement. Outrageous, completed the female across from him. Isabella, why didn't you inform us any of this? Isabella's best composure turned into cracking. It's extra complicated. Then it appears. Dennis volunteered to assist us. We never requested. Actually, I interrupted, pulling out the newspaper article. Let's talk approximately what you did ask for, and what you instructed the media, approximately me. The temperature within the room appeared to drop 10 degrees. I placed copies of the newspaper article on the desk, looking because the dinner guests identified my photo from the unflattering tale that had run 3 days earlier. Now, I said, my voice carrying clearly through the surprising silence. Let's communicate approximately the real manipulators on this family. Cody's face had long passed from crimson to ashen. Catherine sat inflexible in her chair, her wineglass forgotten, in her hand. Mr. Jenkins right here used his banking connections to plant this story. I endured tapping the newspaper. Notice how I'm portrayed as unstable and dangerous, forsaking poor aged people in freezing weather. A gray-haired man in high-priced sweater appeared up from the thing. Cody, what is this approximately? The weather was 52 degrees and sunny, I stated before Cody could solution. And they were not stranded vacationers. They had been Isabella's parents. Coming to the Christmas dinner, I'd been banned from attending because I wasn't precise sufficient for their agency. Catherine finally determined her voice. That's no longer... We never said you in no way stated what, Catherine. I pulled out my phone, wherein I'd screenshotted several of Isabella's social media posts. That I was too low-ass for your dad and mom, that my Mexican food and working-class verbal exchange would embarrass you in the front of your knowledgeable friends. The lady I diagnosed as one in every of Catherine's charity buddies shifted uncomfortably. Catherine, simply, you did not. He's twisting the entirety, Cody blustered, however his voice lacked conviction. This guy has severe intellectual fitness troubles, the pressure of aging, economic troubles, financial issues. I almost laughed. Mr. Jenkins, I've been supporting your daughter and son-in-law to the tune of nearly $3,000 a month for 5 years. The best monetary issues here are the ones you're approximately to have. I became to deal with the entire table. These human beings have taken $200,000 from me while calling me names behind my again. They've manipulated my son in opposition to me, banned me from circle of relatives gatherings, and after I ultimately stood up for myself, they attempted to break my popularity in the newspaper. Michael spoke for the primary time, his voice barely above a whisper. Dad, I did not know approximately the newspaper. Your wife knew, I stated quietly. And her mother and father orchestrated it. They turned me right into a villain for refusing to be their personal ATM and chauffeur. The social dynamic within the room was transferring like tectonic plates. I could see it within the visitors' faces. The slow attention that the whole lot they had been instructed approximately tonight's generous hosts changed into constructed on lies. This is unconscionable, said an aged girl in pearls, gazing the financial institution statements. Cody, how should you permit your daughter take advantage of this man's generosity, then assault him publicly whilst he stopped enabling it? Cody's carefully maintained facade changed into crumbling. You don't apprehend the overall scenario. I recognize flawlessly, the female interrupted. This guy has been helping your own family financially, even as you handled him like employed assist, and when he finally said no, you attempted to break his recognition. Catherine's voice got here out-strangled. He deserted us on the airport. After you advised me I wasn't welcome at Christmas dinner because my presence might be irrelevant in your parents, I stated frivolously. After 5 years of paying their bills whilst you appearance down on me for my ethnicity and schooling level. The silence became deafening. 12 humans observing Cody and Catherine, with expressions ranging from disgust to embarrassment for having related to them. Isabella made one final desperate try and control the narrative. Everyone, please. This is a family dependent truly is gotten out of hand. No, I said firmly. This stopped being a own family matter while you made it public. When you used the newspaper to assault my man or woman, whilst you made a decision my popularity turned into acceptable collateral damage to your pride. I regarded around the table at faces I did not understand, but who now knew exactly who I become. I desired you all to recognize the reality before you study approximately Dennis Flores within the paper once more, due to the fact you will read about me again. But subsequent time it is going to be the real tale. I closed my briefcase and straightened my tie. Enjoy the relaxation of your dinner. It's the last one I'll be purchasing. As I walked towards the door, I could listen the eruption starting in the back of me. Voices raised in accusation. Questions. Worrying answers. The sound of a carefully built social facade falling aside. It became the most stunning Christmas tune I'd ever heard. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning in March, added via licensed mail, with the burden of felony effects in the back of each phrase. I signed for it at my front door, noting how the spring air smelled of new increase and possibility and preference, to the winter desperation that had marked those dark December days. Notice of default, the envelope study, very last demand for fee. Inside 3 months of overlooked mortgage bills had stuck up with Michael and Isabella like a tsunami of fact. $8,400 in arrears 14 days to convey the account cutting edge, or face foreclosure lawsuits on the residence I'd helped them buy. I set the letter aside and again to my coffee, reading it the way you would examine information about remote climate. Interesting, however, no longer your trouble anymore. My telephone had been ringing for weeks with increasingly more desperate calls. Isabella's variety blocked after the primary hysterical voicemail. Cody and Catherine, whose social standing in Spokane had evaporated like morning mist after their Christmas dinner humiliation. Even Michael, whose calls I'd been ignoring out of a mixture of anger and curiosity about how long it'd take him to swallow his pride. The answer, reputedly, became 97 days. He knocked on my door that Thursday night time, no longer the confident man who'd excluded me from Christmas dinner, but someone who gave the impression of he'd elderly a decade and 3 months. Dark circles below his eyes, his pricey match wrinkled, the scent of desperation clinging to him like cheap cologne. "Dad," he stated when I opened the door, "we need to talk." I stepped aside to allow him in, noting how he seemed around my house, like he'd become seeing it for the primary time. The new fixtures I'd offered with my first mortgage-free paycheck, the fresh paint on walls that hadn't been updated in 8 years, due to the fact each spare dollar had long passed to his lifestyle. The repairs I'd sooner or later been able to manage to pay for now that I wasn't subsidizing someone else's American dream. "Nice region," he stated quietly. "It's what takes place while you spend money on yourself as opposed to people who don't." "Appreciate it," I answered, settling into my new recliner. "Coffee?" He shook his head, perching on the threshold of my sofa like he turned into afraid to get snug. "Dad, I want you to know how sorry I am about the whole lot. Christmas dinner, the newspaper article, the manner, Isabella, the way we treated you." "Go on." I did not recognize approximately Cody planting that story. I swear I failed to. When I found out, he ran his arms through his hair. "Jesus, Dad. The matters they said about you in the back of your lower back. The manner they mentioned our own family, approximately mother's memory." My jaw tightened at the point out of Maria. However, I kept my voice stage. "And what exactly did they are saying about your mother? That she knew her location higher than you knew yours? That she understood boundaries?" They could not meet my eyes. "I must have defended you. I should have stood up to them years ago." "Yes," I stated truly. "You should have." We sat in silence for an extended second, the burden of 5 years of mistakes filling the gap among us. Outside, I should pay attention my neighbor mowing his garden. The regular sounds of an ordinary Thursday evening in a regular neighborhood in which sons didn't exclude their fathers from Christmas dinner. "The house is in foreclosures," Michael said sooner or later. "I recognize. We cannot make the payments without." He stopped, seeming to recognize how that sounded. "Without my help," I completed. "Without the money I turned into sending each month while you allow your wife's own family deal with me like rubbish." "I understand the way it looks, Michael." I leaned forward, ensuring he changed into looking at me. "Do you know the way an awful lot money I dispatched you over 5 years?" He nodded miserably. "Isabella calculated it after Christmas. The loan payments, the down price, the whole lot else. Over $200,000. $237,468, I corrected. I recognize the exact quantity because I ultimately did something I need to have performed years ago. I introduced it up. His face crumpled. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I do not know how to repair this." "You cannot fix it, son. That money is long gone. But more importantly, the one's years are gone. 5 years when I could have been constructing a courting, with you in place of investment, your wife's myth life." I understand that now." He regarded up at me with something that would have been desire. "But perhaps we may want to begin over. Maybe there is a way to." "Are you asking me to renew the loan bills?" The wish died in his eyes. We are going to lose the whole lot, Dad. The residence, Isabella's recognized for me, her parents' approval. I do not know what I'll do. You'll parent it out, I said, not unkindly. The same way I discovered the way to live without a son who respected me. The equal manner I learned to spend Christmas by myself at the same time as you celebrated with individuals. Who knows? He walked to the door, then turned again. Dad, for what it's well worth, seeing you stand up for yourself at Christmas dinner. I was pleased with you. Embarrassed and irritated, however proud too. Good, I said. Maybe there may be hope for you. But after he left, I poured myself a tumbler of the best whiskey and stepped onto my back porch. Spring was coming to Spokane, the timber beginning to bud, the air warming with promise. In 4 months, I'd be 63. Maria were gone for 8 years. I'd wasted 5 of these years being a doormat for folks who did not respect sacrifice. I wasn't making plans to waste anymore. My phone buzzed with a textual content from Rosa. Dinner Sunday. The children want to show you their school initiatives. I smiled and typed, returned. Wouldn't leave out it. Real circle of relatives. It became out, becomes something you located with people who clearly desired you there. Everything else turned into simply luxurious theater, and I turned into finished buying tickets to suggests wherein I wasn't welcome on level. The whiskey tasted like freedom, and the future regarded exactly as brilliant as I was inclined to make it. If you like this tale, please like this video. Subscribe to the channel and percentage your impressions of this story within the feedback. To listen to the next tale, click on the field on the left.